Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept you a seat, and it's great to see you back. Snowball, how appropriate. Snowball is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted. To my left, your right. If you happen to be listening on SHRmedia.com, if you happen to be watching on Facebook Live on the SHR Media Facebook page, also if you happen to be watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel and on High Plains TV. Thank goodness you're here. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle, don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, it's Tuesday, December, oh my God, where did the year go? December 5th, the year of our Lord 2017. Thursday, coming up, great show with Tammy Jackson. Going to be talking about the 47 dead bodies of the Clintons. You might be saying to yourself, what the hell is that all about? Well, hang around, come back on Thursday in the Zeppelin Saloon, and you might find out something about that. Tonight, however, we happen to have the... Now, I don't get it. Dan, you're going to have to tell me why. Why the hell is it that Sean calls you the second best media guy in the business? I don't get it. What's up with that?
Oh, good evening, BZ. You know what? That's kind of an inside joke between Sean and I. What's funny is, over the years, on a lot of different radio shows and stuff, whether we've been on Sackheads or my own show, or we've been guests on other shows. Sean and I kind of jack with each other. I'll send him really goofy news stories, or he'll bust my chops on the air, and I'll, one of my favorite things to do is to send him a text or something and mess him up while he's on the air. So it's kind of just a long-running inside joke between the two of us.
Well, the nice thing is I get to screw with him live on the air here in the studio every Wednesday. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that to be able to do it live. By the way, what I'm talking about, folks, if you're not in the know, is every Wednesday right here on the SHR Media channel, You can hear the Sackheads Radio, Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, Sackheads BZ, the triumvirate of wonderfulness. Every Wednesday, the best in late-night conservative talk. I am relegated. Hey, Dan, I'm just like you. I'm relegated to second place. I'm only great late-night conservative talk. They are the best in late-night conservative talk. Okay, all right. You and I are brothers in secondism, I guess, I suppose. How can I ask you a question? It's actually now I think it's the Farmer's Almanac says it's going to be cold as hell this winter. At least that's what I can determine. So here in Sacramento, California, the belly of the beast, the Bill Mill, where we're broadcasting in the SHR Media studios, literally not more than 2 miles that way is the literal belly of the beast, the capital of the state of Fornicalia, here in Sacramento. And we broadcast, well, obviously I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, but it's actually been pretty damn cold here. We got a frost warning last night. We got a frost warning tonight. So where you are, which is not that terribly far from Amarillo, Texas, are you getting some pretty good chills there, Sir Dan?
Well, I'll tell you, this weekend we were in the mid-70s. Monday we were probably in the mid-70s. And then today I think we topped out at 40 today. Now, here's what's wonderful about weather in the Texas Panhandle. Sometimes the weather you'll have 5 seasons. It seems like that. But you can experience just about every season in a single day sometimes around here. In the summertime, our spring weather and our fall weather, absolutely beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful weather you'll ever experience, minus the occasional tornado and such in the springtime.
Nah, no problem.
But our thunderstorms are absolutely amazing around here and stuff. But in the summertime, here in the Panhandle, we can be as dry as can be. We can be as wet as can be. We can get up. The all-time record high where I live is 112 degrees. Is the all-time record high.
God.
In the summertime, we will average somewhere between 90 to 100 degrees. Normally, we'll stay in the low to mid-90s. But we will break the century mark several times during the summer. Now, come winter time, when it gets to, it's not uncommon for us to have snow the middle of October here.
What?
Thankfully, we haven't had any snow yet. But come wintertime, man, we will get down, we will get down below zero. Our all-time record low here is something like minus 15. It's not uncommon for us to have wind chills in the minus 20, 30 range. When we have a good blizzard come through, we do get some 2 and 3 foot snowfalls. So we go from one extreme to the other here in the Panhandle. So if you like weather, man, you will experience here. And we also have one of these godforsaken things that you guys experience that we have in common where you live, and that's, of course, wildfires. We've been dry here. We've had about over 40 straight days that we haven't had any rain or moisture or anything. So it's gotten dry, and, of course, we've had a series. Thankfully, we hadn't had any big ones, but, we've had a series of smaller ones here, a couple of 100 acres here, a couple of 100 acres there. 5 years ago, we had a big wildfire here that burned over 1 million acres, took out about 500 homes. So that's something that we have in common with you is wildfires.
It's a good thing that you're not watching live right now, because as you were talking about snow, I was making faces to everyone on the air, and I was mouthing the words, "No damn way, there is no." Come on, be serious. There's no snow in Texas. Jeez, nice try, mister. Nice damn try.
You know what? There's mountains here. Our tallest mountain here is Guadalupe Peak. It's over 8,000 feet. So I mean, we have a little bit of everything here in Texas. That's what makes it great, man.
All right. Speaking of wildfires, there is a massive massive wildfire in Ventura County. It's destroyed 50,000 acres, 150 structures, 27,000 residents they've fled, and now I-5. Now, I-5, for folks who don't know, in California, I-5, obviously, like anything that's numbered in the interstate system, in an odd number, runs north and south. Well, I-5 is literally the vein, the massive traffic vein in the state of California. Well, that thing is closed at Santa Clarita. So if for some God-forsaken reason you're listening or watching my show where you're in a car or an SUV and you're toddling your butt down to the Southern California area right now and you're on I-5, guess what? You're not going to be getting to Los Angeles because I-5 is closed right now due to these massive wildfires. But I will say this, Dan. Not last night, today and yesterday, even in Sacramento, the winds were absolutely incredible. Now, the firefighters down there are facing winds of up to 40 to 50 miles an hour, and they're not going anywhere. The winds are staying in that way. Jerry Brown just declared a state of emergency down in Ventura County, and there are over 1,000 people fighting this fire right now. Until I got up this morning and looked at the news, I had no idea that there was a wildfire down there at all, period. End of statement. So you guys, you're in a drought. Now, luckily for us up here in Northern California, we've had some pretty good rain already. I've had some snow. I'm at the 4,000-foot limit up at the Sierra Nevada mountains up Interstate 80, and I've already gotten snow. Not a huge amount, but it's really cold up there. It's like the nights are like 25, 26, 27, right around in there. Oh, but very nice. Except for the fact that, damn it, the heaters went out. I have a wall furnace up there in the cabin. Heater went out. I have a HVAC system in Ghetto Central in my wife's house. That went out. So right now we're on emergency heating in her house, and I'm waiting for a part to come in up in my cabin up there. Okay, now that we've had heat features with BZ, how about we get down to some good old politics, some good old buttery political goodness, as I am wont to say. Dan, it's not like there's been anything happening this past week or weekend, has there? Like, come on, nothing. Nothing at all.
Flip a coin. Where do you want to start, man? It is absolutely. You know what? It seems like every few years you have something like this, where it just seems like there's one scandal after another, there's one conflict after another. But man. The deal over the sexual harassment, that's something that's hitting Republicans and Democrats. It looks like Roy Moore in Alabama is going to run away with that, despite all the allegations against him. Of course, Donald Trump has thrown his full support behind Moore. The RNC has actually jumped back into that race. They had withdrawn all of their funding for Moore. Now, since Trump has come out and thrown his weight behind Moore, the RNC has jumped back in there. Did you have somebody like Congressman Flake who
wrote a check?
Who sends a check to the Democrats? So,
he wrote a check to Jones.
Man, where do you want to start?
Good God, mister. What I'd like to do is go a different direction the beginning of the show here, because I found two articles that I've noticed almost no one is talking about, but to me says a hell of a lot about the future, the potential future of the GOP. Now, we know that a lot of people are starting to move to the independent area. I'm a registered independent. The Republican Party is, everybody says the Republican Party left me, blah, blah, blah. I found two articles that I think are very interesting that no one has emphasized. They're kind of in the background, and after I read both of these, I would very seriously like to solicit your input on these. The first one is from the Washington Examiner. And it says the headline is Washington Secrets, Harvard, Millennials, now the biggest voting group in the U.S., 2-1 Democratic. A new Harvard University poll on Tuesday, directly today, is blaring a loud danger signal to the Republican Party after finding that millennials are now the largest generation of voters, and they are overwhelmingly Democratic by a 2-1 margin. The latest youth poll from Harvard's influential Institute of Politics found that America's 18 to 29-year-olds prefer Democrats 65% to 33%, in part because they don't like President Trump and are fearful about the future. Now, hold on just for a second. I'd like to point this out. There was a new poll also that I spoke about last week. And the poll said that millennials, and it specifically made the difference between millennials and Gen Zers. Gen Zers are the youngest kids that are growing up. Millennials, they're kind of on the way, but they're not the newest group. Now, what they discovered is that millennials, not Gen Zers, are more inclined to give away their personal freedoms, including their First Amendment rights, than Gen Zers. Conversely, they are the first to say in these polls that violence against hate speech or speech in which they disagree is acceptable to them. Gen Zers, when polled, did not come out with these numbers. So, having said that, I look at this poll, I look at the other one, and the phrase that comes to me immediately, Dan, is this. This is where I'd like to solicit your thoughts. My first phrase that came to my brain housing group was this: demography is prophecy. What do you think, Sir Dan of Butcher?
There's so many different ways you can go with this, and we see a lot of these different polls. I see a lot of different polls showing that when it comes to millennials, when it comes to Generation X and what have you, all the different voting groups, depending on how the polls are surveyed, what the sample is, et cetera, we see a lot of polls, too, showing a trend towards young professionals tend to be Republican. It's amazing how when one of these young millennials comes out of their mom and dad's basement and discovers that their degree in basket weaving or social justice isn't worth anything, then they actually have to get a job. Yep. It's amazing how quickly they become a capitalist when they have to actually start paying for stuff. And so you see lots of different polls saying, we see more people going to the right, we see more people going to the left, or what have you. But here's the one thing: when you bring all the samplings of all these polls together, because I look at polling, I get so sick of looking at polling every day, and it seems like one of the first things I do, everything's go to Real Clear Politics to look at different polling and different things like that.
You'd see it
when you pull all these samples together. What's really surprising is that you hear this on this, you hear this on the left, but what's really surprising is still the majority of the majority of people living in the United States are still walking down the middle of that aisle. Okay, now my personal thing, I have this. People are shocked when I tell them I've never been a Republican, I've never been a Democrat, I've always been an independent.
Okay.
I've never belonged to a political party. I use the term conservatarian to describe my personal political beliefs. I'm very conservative, but I tend to take a libertarian bend and turn on a few things. I like the term conservatarian to describe my different thoughts on things. But what we generally see is when it's all said and done, when all the sampling is done, most people are still walking right down the aisle, and they're independents. This is what is really if you want to say what's dangerous to the political parties, it's more people that are fed up with not only the Republicans, but you can also look at all the different polls and all the data that shows people are totally fed up and pissed off at the Democrats as well. People have had enough of political parties. Now, there is where I look at some of this stuff, I go further than looking at the polls. I look at actions and seeing what is taking place in different parts of the country. Okay, and you see what's happening in California. You know, the Republican Party's all but given up in California. Okay, you have this year. You have Republicans actually saying, "Is it worth it? Do I want to really run again?" You know,
it's
or do I just want to keep collecting my check and what have you? You know, and you see this in other parts of the country. But you look and see. And in particular, you know, in the rural areas, in the mid-size markets, in the mid-size regional markets, which is what I live in. I consider, you know, kind of give you an idea, I live in the Texas Panhandle where Amarillo, Texas is. It's the exact midpoint on Interstate 40 that's running from, you know, from St. Louis down to California. I live exactly an hour and a half from Lubbock, Texas, where Texas Tech University is. You know, major university, big, you know, metro area of over 300,000 there. We have over 200,000. So, you know, our metro area between the two is 500,000. But yet we're a very conservative area, and you tend to see that in the coming up from the small towns to the mid-size and to the, you know, rural America in that. But when you get into the large population centers, which quite honestly, let's face it, L.A., San Francisco, Sacramento, that's what controls everything in California, those metro centers. In New York, it's New York City. Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, they don't have a say in anything in New York State. It's New York City that calls the shots there. Here in Texas, you know, if you want to look for the people will say, well, you know, Austin is a pretty liberal area. Actually, Austin, Texas is in reality, Austin, Texas is middle of the road. It's pretty split down the middle.
I would never have guessed that.
When you start talking liberal here in Texas, it's Houston, Texas by far. Houston, Texas is San Francisco East. When it gets down to politics.
Now, see, I would have guessed Dallas. I would have guessed Dallas right there.
Dallas is a Democrat stronghold, but when you compare a Democrat stronghold such as Dallas, Texas, and compare it to New York City, San Francisco, something like that, it looks like the Republican Party. I mean, you know, it's not. But then in the DFW area, you have Fort Worth, which is very conservative, that balances in Tarrant County, which balances out. Dallas County. Then you also have Denton County, which is ultra-conservative. That with Tarrant overshadows the Democrats in Dallas County. So you kind of see how this works. And so, but I look at it this way. You know, I like to talk to young people, engage what they're saying, and they're very concerned about what's going on in our country today. I think they're more concerned and more aware than what we give them credit for sometimes. Now, granted, we tend to see the extreme elements sometimes, you know, when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, when we're talking about, Antifa, and different things like that. But you know what? We also go to the extreme right as well. We have just as many young millennials on the right side of the aisle that are just as loony as those on the left. So, you know, it's a mix and match depending on how you want to look at it. But I still think that we still, and maybe call me naive, call me, you know, being very pessimistic. I tend to look for the good in people, and I tend to look for a bright future. And here's the thing: so many times in our country's history, when you've had progressivism, try to get a hold, something's always risen up and slapped it down and said, hey, wait a minute, this is not right. Even in parts of Europe, you have some of those countries are going, hey, wait a minute, we've gone a little too far with some of this. We can't afford this. We've created a generation that says, gimme, gimme, gimme. What is this? This is mine, 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 mine. And so the one thing about the United States of America is when you start to get that mentality, you tend to get slapped back down to reality pretty quick. When you actually have to have a paycheck to have a living and have to get a job, have to get trained, because very quickly, even though Democrats, progressives love to spend other people's money, that money does run out eventually.
Right,
so
running out.
They have to keep finding different sources
out of other people's money.
And then reality sets in.
Yep. Hey, folks, we got 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break, the first break. We are talking to Dan Butcher, who I am want to call is the High Plains media magnate, the #1 best media guy in the world. Now, before we go to break, I want to ask you this other question because we've got tons of stuff to talk about in terms of politics. But I came across this article, and because you are in the media, you are the media, I'm very curious about your thoughts and input on this. I looked at CNBC.com, and the headline is, Disney and Fox are closing in on deal. Could be announced next week. Talks have progressed and a deal could be announced as early as next week, sources tell CNBC. The enterprise value of the Fox assets in the deal is seen in more than $60 billion. Fox would sell movie and television production assets and keep its news, sports, and broadcast network. Now, on its face, I would suspect that probably a lot of people are saying, people buy companies all the time. It's another corporate purchase. My first thought, because I'm weird that way, is, okay, Disney, which leans heavily left, purchasing Fox, which is about the only network left that has some people on the right on it, and it seems to be doing its level best to import more people from the left into Fox. Do you, Dan, see any kind of jeopardy? We got about 3 minutes left. Do you see any kind of warning flares, bells and klaxons going off of the purchase of Fox by Disney?
Well, let me tell you what's going to end up happening is because we're seeing the same thing. A company's trying to buy Time Warner, and as part of that deal, that would include CNN having to be sold off as a separate entity. You're going to see the same thing if this goes through and Disney buys Fox. Fox News will not be part of the purchase. The reason being is because Disney already owns what? ABC. They already own ABC News. So I guarantee you the regulators will never allow them to own both the Fox News network and ABC. So Fox News will have to be sold off separately. And I think Disney really is not looking for Fox News per se. They're wanting more of the entertainment holdings that Fox has, and so that's kind of what they're looking for. But Fox News will probably end up just looking at past history on how a lot of these sales have gone. Fox News will be broken off and sold as a separate entity.
The biggest question that I have then, okay, and that gives me a good answer with regard to that. But the next question that I had, and we got about 2 minutes left, is this. They stripped Fox out of that deal because, as you point out, Disney owns ABC, I think you said. And you can't have two massive media conglomerates together so that they really have a lock on lots of media in television. So the question is, if Fox kind of goes it, let's say Fox News specifically, if the Fox News channel ends up going it alone, then, Dan, the question is, will they be strong enough fiscally to stay in the marketplace and play and compete on something of an even keel with everybody else in the media? Fox
News is still the dominant. far and away still the most dominant cable news network. And if this deal goes through, Fox News, you're going to see somebody, and I would suspect that probably one of the big, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to make a prediction. But in this deal, if Fox News is stripped away, one of the big players to snap up Fox News would be Breitbart News. Watch that.
Really? Really?
And let me give you a reason why.
Okay.
Just today, Breitbart News made a major expansion of their radio assets on Sirius. So you need to be watching that. They just made a major expansion. Wow. They're expanding the number of shows they have on Sirius Radio. So Breitbart is already expanding on the radio side of things. So it would not surprise me at all to see them try to get into the cable network business and snatch up Fox News. And let me throw another name out there.
Okay.
And I know that Mercury Arts has had some issues money-wise.
Oh, the Blaze. The Blaze, right.
The Blaze and Mercury Arts would be another, because here's the thing, Lynn Beck still does have a lot of support. He still has he has been very smart in the way they retooled the Blaze and the Blaze TV network and what they're doing there. It would not surprise me to see like Mercury Arts come in and with some other backing to try to snap up Fox News. Another name I would throw out there would be Mark Levin.
Oh, that's right. Mark Levin just recently went to Fox on the weekends. Okay, excellent points. Excellent points. We'll all be back. Folks, we're listening to Dan Butcher, the number one guy in the media. He is the media magnate of High Plains Media. We're going to take a commercial break. Please come back. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin on BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Please don't go away. Come back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com. And maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
you got a business. That you didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The Bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, hey, it's Christmas time. If you happen to be watching live on YouTube on the SHR Media channel, guess what old BZ happens to be wearing on the top of his bald pate? You want to see? You'll have to go watch. Also, you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page and watch live right now. And I need to not forget my manners and call out everybody that's in chat right now. I am in chat. Mike is in chat. Great to see you, Mike. Dan, of course, is in chat. Simone of Simone Says is in chat. And Mary Brockman. Good to see you. Folks, we are talking right now to Dan Butcher, the number one head dude magnate, M-A-G-N-A-T-E, not M-A-G-N-E-T, of High Plains Media. He is located in Tejas. And we were talking about media and some of the things that were going on in terms of the news. We talked about some wildfires and whatnot. But now there's way too much stuff in terms of politics. Before we go there, though, I want to acknowledge this. I think it was yesterday. You guys had a law enforcement officer shot dead in the line of duty while he was serving some warrants, and he was in, I think it was in San Marcos, Texas. He was shot and killed yesterday afternoon when he was serving a warrant. He was Ken Copeland, a veteran of the San Marcos Police Department since March of 1998. He was serving a warrant in the El Camino Real subdivision of the city where he was fatally shot. Police Chief Chase Stapp confirmed during a press conference on Monday night. Copeland, who was wearing a vest, and other officers were shot at by the suspect, much like in an ambush type of situation. Now, I haven't been to your site, but my guess would be that you've already written about this, Dan.
Yeah, let me give you a little bit more background on this.
Okay.
Officer Copeland was actually working on his day off. He was working an overtime shift. He was working some extra overtime for, obviously, other officers said he was wanting to earn a little extra money for Christmas.
Right.
And so he was working an extra shift. This was supposed to be his day off. He was 58 years old, and of course he is survived by a wife and 4 children. So you're talking about a gentleman that had his life taken away. And, of course, he was taken away from his wife and his 4 children needlessly. BZ, we're seeing way too much of this. And let's be honest. Let's give credit where credit is due. All of this bullshit was started by Barack Obama. Okay, Barack Obama and his war on law enforcement and on the men in blue and the war on our military has led to the deaths of way too many police officers. Damn, Barack Obama. He has blood on his hands for this police officer's death. This is what has started all of this. And you have seen criminals more emboldened because police forces across the country have had, let's face it, they've felt the need to restrain themselves because of how it would look for PR purposes. And they're not allowed to do their jobs the way they were trained. And when police officers are not allowed to do their jobs the way they were trained to do, man, they end up getting killed. You know, just 2 weeks ago, we had a Texas Department of Public Safety state trooper who had stopped a car on the side of the road. He turned around, was walking back to his car, and the suspect shot him dead in cold blood in the back. The officer never saw it coming. BZ, we're seeing too much of this.
I would go you one further. Number one, I completely agree with what you're saying there in terms of blood being on, it's on Barack Hussein Obama. But further, it's not just the blood of cops. No, the blood of urban blacks in most major urban centers, young black males. The crime rates are skyrocketing in Chicago, they're skyrocketing in Baltimore, they're skyrocketing all across the fruited plain, and one of the reasons for that is cops have been accused of over-policing. And they've been told, literally, by the citizens, by their own administration, by those involved in politics, you're over-policing, back your jets up. So they've been, guess what? Would it shock anybody to know that, yes, they've been pumping the brakes? What happens when that occurs? It's the Ferguson effect, but moreover, what is the short-term and long-term effect for that? And that is crime has been going up. Shootings have been going up because there are two types of police activity, and I've said this before and will continue to say it again. There's self-initiated activity and there's response. In terms of that, what I mean is cops are sitting in an automobile. They happen to have their computer or a laptop on. The little thing goes, oot, and they get a call. They go to the call. They handle the call, whatever the hell it is. They clear the call, and they wait for another call. Self-initiated activity is what the hell you do with your district, your area, your beat, while you're waiting for another call. In other words, you go look for crime. You go look for bad guys. Self-initiated activity is down. That's how you get bad guys. Stop and frisk. Crime went down markedly in New York City because of stop and frisk. Bloomberg, of course, pulled that out. De Blasio says, screw that. You can't do that anymore. Even crime in New York City is starting to go up. But in the urban major centers where blacks have every right to be policed and have safety in their neighborhoods just like anybody else. But because the cops have been accused of over-policing, they're pulling out. Now, yes, they're getting shot at a greater rate, especially in November. I got a story about that, but I'll talk about that later. But you're absolutely right. It's hurting the cops, and it's also hurting the citizens as well.
You know, BZ, let me throw this little stat out there just to kind of sum this up and put all this in perspective. If you take black-on-black crime, if you take black-on-black murders out of the crime stats, okay? The United States of America has the lowest crime rate of any industrialized modern nation in the world. Think about that. You take just those stats out. You take the black-on-black crime out of the picture. We have the lowest murder rate. We have the lowest crime rate of any country in the world. And so this is something, and BZ, this is we can do a whole nother show on this.
Hell
talking
yes.
about how we need to address these things. But man, you know what? It starts with going back in and doing what police do, community policing, going in, being part of the community, meeting and talking with the people, learning what's going on in the neighborhoods. What can we do to do this, to fight crime? What can we do to create jobs? What can we do to better educate these folks, to help them find jobs, to help them be entrepreneurs, to help them have pride in the neighborhoods, to rebuild the neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We could do 2 and 3 shows on that, and I have before. But bottom line is, this is something, and I think it's a tragedy, BZ. It's something
terrible.
that even with the new administration, that here was the thing. When Barack Obama was elected president, he had the one opportunity that he had the podium, he had the bully pulpit. The one thing he could have done is addressed all of these problems. He could have been the one. He could have continued and accomplished and maybe finished a lot of the work that Martin Luther King Jr. started, but was unable to finish because his life was tragically cut short. But he didn't do it. What did he do? He amplified the problem. He brought back race baiting. He brought back, race tensions were worse. Race relations were worse than they have been in decades because of the race baiting of Barack Obama, all in the name of community organizing, et cetera, et cetera, all of following the playbook of Saul Alinsky. But he had that opportunity. If there's one failure, there's a lot of failures of Barack Obama's presidency, but the biggest failure of all that's going to tarnish his legacy, and this is what the historians are going to look back on 100 years from now, is the fact that the first black president of the United States was unable to do anything with the black communities to help them improve themselves, to help solve the crime rates, the murder rates, to help lift these folks up. Not give them a handout, but give them a hand up. That's going to be the greatest failure of his presidency, BZ.
He was the great divider. He wasn't a uniter. He was a divider. He didn't just talk about identity politics. He made certain that identity politics absolutely inculcated every aspect of his administration, every person he appointed, every speech he gave, every location where he spoke to folks. It wasn't about unity. It was only about unity of folks on the left. He couldn't have given a fuck about the people on the right, or the middle, for that matter. And now we're such a striated society, just as you pointed out earlier, in terms of people on the right seem to be moving more to the right. People on the left seem to be moving more to the left. You ask me, the thing that's most sustainable is middle to right. Middle to left and hard left is just unsustainable, to use one of their lovely buzzwords. Now let's transition here just for a moment. It was last week that a very unique verdict came down from, of all places, San Francisco. We shouldn't be surprised, but I'm curious what your thoughts may be about the Kate Steinle murder trial and an illegal alien who had been deported 5 times, was found not guilty of her murder. He was found to be a parolee or a probationer in possession of a handgun. Whoopee fucking do. But in terms of the murder of Katie Steinle, he was found not guilty. Only in California, only in San Francisco.
Okay, I'm good at I'm watching what I say here. Here's the thing, BZ. You have an illegal alien, bottom line, that got away with murder.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
He got away with cold-blooded murder. End of discussion. Now, if anything, hopefully we can bring this to light and show the every day here in the state of Texas. I run articles, about different things that are coming down on the border. Right now, let me take a look real quick. We had here in Texas, the Border Patrol agents just yesterday arrested 2 convicted sex offenders. It seems like every day I have a story here and there about running, where they stopped $1 million worth of drugs coming across here, there, everywhere. So if anything, maybe we can use this to highlight remember, I have no problems with people that want to come to this country legally. And we can debate what we're going to do with illegal aliens that are already here and what have you. But there is no debate when it comes to dealing with repeat offenders that keep coming across the border. We keep having here just yesterday 2 convicted sex offenders were caught down in Laredo trying to come back across the border. Folks, and you'll hear the liberals argue, well, that's just a small percentage of the problem. Well, you know what? That small percentage of the problem is a very big problem crime-wise in the United States, whether you're dealing with gangs, the drug cartels, or what have you. The term MS-13 should scare the living shit out of you, BZ. Any of these type of gangs. I have another story where they arrested a known gang member coming across. This is a gang of known illegal immigrants. We have a gang of known illegal. They're all illegal immigrants. So here's the thing. Hopefully, if anything else, this young lady's tragic death, as unfortunate as it was, hopefully it will shed some light and put the spotlight on the very serious problem that we have with illegal alien crime. Okay? Now, once again, our friends on the left are going to argue, well, you know what, these are just a small part of the problem. They're not that big a deal. They're a very big deal when you're talking about these folks that are repeat offenders, very serious crimes, murderers, gang members, drug runners, et cetera, et cetera. We're not even getting into talking about human smuggling yet. We're talking about, and when I'm talking, and I'm not just talking about smuggling illegal aliens across the border, I am talking about smuggling young girls across the border into the United States, into the slave trade. Think about that. And most of these are minors that they're shipping. They're smuggling these people in to the country and putting them into the slave trade, to work off their money, whatever. And then, of course, they're indebted and serving to these people probably till they die, because then they usually are hooked on drugs and have all kinds of other problems. So we're not even getting into the human smuggling aspect of all this yet. But hopefully we'll be able to shed some light and show the dangers of especially of the very serious and dangerous crimes of illegal aliens, especially people like this guy that had been deported several times on various different charges, serious charges. This guy was a known criminal.
Yes,
before,
he was.
quote unquote, his gun accidentally went off. Bullshit, that gun didn't actually go off. Whether he was trying to kill himself or whatever he was doing, it led to the death of this young lady, and he should have paid the consequences for it. Now he's going to get deported. Here's the thing: this is how this is going to play out. He's going to serve his time for being a felon in possession of a gun, and then he's going to get deported. And guess what the asshole's going to do? He's going to sneak back across the border again and get into the black market, into the black market economy, working until he kills somebody else. That's what's going to happen. But hopefully we can put a spotlight on the dangers of sanctuary cities, on the dangers and the growing problem. This is not just something, it gets swept under the rug, but this is a growing problem of crime by illegal aliens because they've become more emboldened. Now, I know that, Homeland Security put out a statistic yesterday showing that border arrests are at an all-time low, but here's the thing. The people that are coming across the border now tend to be where we have these these mass border crossings during the Obama administration. The people that tend to be coming across now tend to be the more dangerous and violent people that are sneaking across over and over and over again. Yep. Professional sneakers is a good way to put it.
Yep. This guy was a 5-time deportee. The interesting point about this is that he was also a 5-time deportee and a 7-time felon here in the United States of America. What a lot of people overlook is that this jury, for example, consisted of millennials, complete millennials. And the other thing that's very interesting about this, and I wonder if this is purposeful, is this jury was not sequestered. They found him guilty of a felony for possessing that stolen gun. And so out of that, the maximum in California that he could get behind that is 3 years. Then they focused on the gun. The millennials focused on the gun. As you indicate, the defense attorney said that the gun went off. There was one shot. Well, I happen to know something about that. I was the range master for our 2,000-plus deputy sheriff's department. And as the range master, it was my job to know a lot about various firearms. The guy that had his gun stolen out of his G-Ride, a BLM agent, had a 6-hour P239, which in .40 caliber. And a Sig Sauer P239 has a trigger pull of ranging, and it can range. Each gun is not exactly the same. And that takes a trigger pull of about 10 to 11 pounds, double action, which is how that gun rests because you have a decocking lever on it. And if it happens to be in single action, it takes anywhere from 4.5 to 5 pounds to make that go off. Now, any and every law enforcement officer issued a Sig Sauer decocks the weapon so that in order to pull the trigger to make the gun go bang, it's in double action, which means that it takes a good 10 pounds of pressure to make the gun discharge. If it was in single action, it was because that fuckhead put it in single action. So the possibility of that particular gun, the Sig Sauer P239, going off by accident, air quotes, are twofold: slim and fucking none. So that tells me, number one, this jury has no damn idea about guns, doesn't want to know anything about guns, and there's also this point. The jury at one time asked that, could we see the gun? Could we pull the trigger on the gun to see what that is like? They were refused. Now, the other question is this, and this is just like Mobley in Baltimore, who, in my opinion, overcharged on all 6 of those officers in Baltimore PD. And by the way, if folks you didn't know, she's being sued for overcharging. She's losing her job because of that. However, that being said, this district attorney is either A, grossly incompetent for going for murder one in this, knowing the background of San Francisco, so he's either incompetent or that was a purposeful overcharging to make sure that the jury did its job and this guy received the minimal amount of charging. Why is it that they could not have said, considering the circumstances, perhaps it's more accurate to go for involuntary or voluntary manslaughter? If you had charged that and brought that before the jury, my guess would be you very well may have been able to pull it off. So either this district attorney in San Francisco is a fucking moron, or it was purposeful. There's no point in between. Dan, we got 2 minutes left. Any thoughts?
Not that I can do in 2 minutes, but just to kind of sum up, I've covered, when I was a young reporter, I covered the crime beat a lot, and covered a lot of cases dealing with murder cases and what have you, accidental shootings, legitimate shootings, premeditated murder, what have you. In this case, my opinion, covering this as a reporter, number one, I think the district attorney did overcharge in this case. Number two, I think, and here's the thing, the prosecutor did bring in experts to talk about how the gun worked, just like what you just did. You would have been a perfect expert witness to describe to the jury how this incident took place and how the gun went off and whatever. But here's the thing. The jury chose not to look at that. What they did was they listened to the defense attorney who played this guy off as a poor illegal immigrant who just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, found a gun. It was no fault of his own that it accidentally went off and shot this young lady. And the reason that he had been deported all these many times, the reason he had such a rough life and all these prior convictions was, you know what, it's the system. Yes. Because we had deported him all these times and had not been able to give him job training, had not given him good health care, had not given him, proper education or whatever. That's what had led to all of this. And that is what the jury saw.
He's a victim of circumstance, Dan.
Exactly.
How I cannot believe how judgmental you are right now to say that this poor guy didn't deserve a break. Speaking of break, we are going to be going to break in about a minute or so. But let me throw this out to you, Dan, and to everyone else. If you as a tourist, a visitor to San Francisco, to California, and I'm sure, Dan, you have sanctuary cities all across Texas. If, folks, you step into one of these cities and something bad happens to you, and it happens to be at the hand of an illegal, let me tell you quite frankly, your life doesn't mean shit, because the political correctness has already ensured that scenario. Before we go to the break, we've been talking to Dan Butcher, the #1 media magnate of High Plains Media. And before we go to the break, Dan, can you come back for about 15 minutes or so, or do you have to jam?
Oh, no, I can come back. My wife asked me tonight, how long are you going to be on BZ's show? And I said, well, until he tells me to shut up or we quit talking, whichever comes first.
Okay, folks, we've been talking to Dan Butcher. You listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here on the SHR Media Network. Don't go away. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reaver Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
And you are, in fact, listening to the SHR Media Network. That was good old Jersey Joe, whom, unfortunately, I did not hear tonight. I expected to hear him earlier, and I guess he must be on vacation. It's that time of year. It's the most wonderful time of the year, because if you're watching live on the SHR Media channel on YouTube, you can see that BZ is wearing his, well, that would be a Santa hat, because it's the most wonderful time of the year. Or if you happen to be watching on the SHR Media Facebook live page, you're also seeing this little funny hat. Folks, we're talking to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media, and there's been a ton of stuff going on. Well, Simone left the chat room, and now we have Whiskey Dale back in the chat room, so good to see you, Whiskey Dale. And like I said, we're talking to Dan Butcher. Dan, did anything else of significance maybe tweak your interest the past couple of days? Anything that, I don't know, you think we might talk about just briefly? I'm having trouble coming up with something, really.
You know what, BZ, let me share this with you real quick. Let me do this.
Okay.
This is all, and I do want to share this with you real quick.
All right.
And I saw this, and then we can do this. But this kind of goes back to we're looking. I want to do something. I want something that's kind of uplifting and good news, and this is something that really makes you thought that man, there's still good in the world. But there was a high school in Boston, and I don't know if you heard about this, that held a funeral with full military honors for a homeless vet who didn't have a family. Now, the veteran's name was John Fitzmaurice. He was a homeless Army veteran who passed away in Boston without any family who could take care of his burial. Now, when Catholic Memorial High School found out about this, they decided to bury him with full military honors. Now, the local CBS affiliate described it as a final send-off for a hero from young people who never knew him. The students knew very little about the man, only known as John. However, the school's president, Peter Folan, said that this burial helped the students learn about people who are on society's outskirts. Quote, for us paying homage to a veteran, to bring him to our campus, to provide the burial rights he deserves, and to honor his legacy, and to help our boys realize we have to stand with those who are marginalized. After the Mass, his flag-covered coffin was carried to a hearse by a group of seniors, and then taps was played. So those type of stories, still show you know what, there's still a little bit of common sense in the world. And if we can just foster that common sense, man, we can solve a whole lot of problems, whether it be the fighting between the Republicans and the Republicans, or the Democrats and the Republicans, or what have you.
You make an interesting point, and I wasn't going to mention it. This past weekend, I happened to see a movie, and I thought, okay, I'm going to write a post about this because it to me has been one of the most affecting movies, and I had not planned to talk about it on the show, but I will now that you brought that particular point up. It's no secret that Hollywood is tanking, essentially, because people are tired of seeing the same crap again and again and again. I have to tell you, frankly, I'm tired of seeing CGI. Computer graphics are killing my arse. And the fact that when you go to a movie theater, you always have the screaming baby and the people that won't stop talking, and you've got people on the cell phone or whatnot. Well, I saw a movie this past weekend, and I looked to my wife sitting next to me, and I noticed that on 3 or 4 separate occasions, she was dabbing her eyes. It was an amazing movie. It was a wonderful movie, and it was called Wonder. If you have not seen this movie, folks, I would highly recommend that you go out and see it. If you're tired of the politics and the crap and the bullshit, and you just want to get away and see a good damn movie with a great story and an invigorating story about actual innocence instead of something premeditated and short, go see Wonder. It's about a child who was born with a facial defect, who has been homeschooled, and it's essentially about now he's got to go to public school. He wears this astronaut helmet because he loves all things to do with space. And it's about how he's accepted, first not accepted, and then accepted in this school despite his massive facial deformity. The kid that played Wonder, I think he's supposed to be about 6 years old, 7 years old, something like that. He is an amazing little actor. If you want to see a great movie, I normally don't plug movies, but it's that time of year. Go see that movie, and if you do, bring some Kleenex. Old BZ's The Waterworks went off with Old BZ as well. At the end of it, you'll be damn glad you went.
You know what? My wife and I have both seen Wonder as well, and I'm not going to give anything away about it. But man, it's a great movie, and you know what? I'm right with you, BZ. When I go to the movies, I don't go to the movies. If I watch a movie, I don't want to be lectured. I want to escape from reality, and so that makes me glad that we have some. I'm a Star Wars geek, and so here in 10 days, I've already bought my tickets. I'm ready to go to see Star Wars, The Last Jedi.
I'm going. You bet.
But let me tell you, there's another movie coming out. Now, here we are segueing into movie reviews on the entertainment portion of the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. But there's another great movie coming out. My wife and I are both suckers for musicals. Les Miserables, The Phantom of the Opera. We love those type of musicals.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman.
But there's one coming out that is called The Greatest Showman. And this movie stars Hugh Jackman. Of course, Hugh Jackman, famous for playing Wolverine. But a lot of people don't know that Hugh Jackman also starred in Les Miserables.
Yes, he did.
So he's a great singer. So this is a musical, and it is a movie. Hugh Jackman stars as P.T. Barnum in this movie. And it is a musical, and if you haven't seen the trailer for it, go look for it, man.
I did. Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be a great, entertaining musical. It looks like it's going to be a great movie. So on top of Star Wars, that's one I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Bingo, you got it. Hey, listen, I'm a Star Wars fan just like you. In 1970, oh God, when was the first Star Wars movie? Help me out here, Dan.
77.
77? Okay, 77.
Yes.
I was absolutely enthralled and captured. I was captivated from the very first damn scene when the Star Destroyer, first it scrolled the words were scrolled, you read the words, and then the next thing you knew, a Star Destroyer came from overhead and loomed right over you, and it kept going and going and going, and you got the massive, massive size of it as it fired on this little teeny freighter ahead. After I saw that, dude, I was hooked. I'm a science fiction guy anyway. Star Wars, heck yeah, I'm going to be right there.
Now, BZ, I'm going to tell you this with The Last Jedi, because all of this is focusing around Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
Luke Skywalker's been on a sabbatical at the ancient Jedi temple on this island in the middle of this planet, in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to tell you right now, man, if we do not have any glowy ghost figures show up in this movie in the form of Yoda, of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or anything like that, I'm going to protest. We got to have some glowy ghost figures in this movie, or it's just not the same, man.
I have to ask you a question you might know. God, now it's movie talk with BZ and Dan. But anyway, I gotta ask this question. Gosh, now I can't think of her name. The gal that played the princess. She passed away. Carrie Fisher passed away last year along with her mom. And I happen to notice in the trailer that she is in this movie, so the only thing I can conclude is she is CGI.
No, she had actually before she passed away, she had filmed all of her scenes for the movie. She filmed all of her scenes for the movie before she passed away.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. All right, because in the previous Star Wars film, the general in the Death Star, Peter Cushing, came back, but he was a CGI figure because obviously he'd passed away a few years before that. But they actually did a pretty good job on the CGI for Peter Cushing.
Yes, they did.
Okay, back to politics. And that was movie talk by BZ and and Dan. Come right back next week for more movie talk with BZ and Dan. It says the U.S. is going to recognize Jerusalem now as Israel's capital, and they're going to move the embassy there. Do you see any problems with that, Dan?
Where do we start the problems with this one? Now this is interesting because, this was something that Donald Trump had brought up on the campaign trail. It is something he brought up in the early days of his presidency, and then he backtracked from it. And we hadn't heard anything from it. And then all of a sudden, yesterday, hey, you know what? Donald Trump is on the verge of saying we're going to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, there is a problem with that because the actual, if you want to look at what is recognized as the universal capital of the Christian world, it is Jerusalem, of course.
And
the Muslims also make a strong claim to Jerusalem. Now, the official capital of Israel is Tel Aviv. It has been since the formation of Israel. So you run into some things there. Quite honestly, it would be a symbolic thing. This is my thing. I think this is not the time and place to do that. And the reason being is number one, we've got a powder keg in on the Asian Peninsula with North Korea that we're going to have to deal with. So the last thing we need to do is stroke the fire up in the Middle East any worse than what it already is, because the Middle East is still blowing up on us. So this is my thing. You know what? Let's solve a few problems first. Let's deal with the situation in North Korea. Let's get that under control first.
Oh, my God.
And deal with our foreign policy there. And you know what? And then let's see what we can do to deal with the situation in Syria and the rest of the Middle East, because Iraq is on the verge of blowing up again. You have Iran on the verge of having a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran still the largest funder of terrorism across the world. Blah 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 blah. I think we have more important issues, foreign policy-wise, right now to deal with than moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. In reality, doing that, just because how the Islamist, the terrorist, they look for anything symbolic to set them off. And if you want to set them off and give them a reason to start blowing shit up, there it is right there. Move the embassy to Jerusalem. That will give them an excuse, as if they need one. The only excuse they need is that, tomorrow will be Wednesday, right? So, but if
Wednesday,
they're looking for a legitimate reason, that would be it right now.
You brought up something that I made a little note to myself. I need to talk about this, and then we got into movie talk with BZ and Dan, and you brought us back on track. That's this, because I found two very interesting articles just today that dealt with North Korea. You brought up North Korea. Dan, do you have any thoughts on North Korea? Because now I'm going to give you some information after you start that is going to give you some real insight, I believe, as to what's occurring, and then also a massive fuck you with regard to North Korea. What can we do, if anything, about North Korea?
At this point, I think my personal opinion, with North Korea, I think we're past the negotiating stages, because Kim Jong-un, he is on a mission now. He wants to be a major world player. He wants to be a major world player at the expense of his own people. We had stories coming out, defectors are coming out saying, hey, there are millions upon millions of North Koreans sick now because of all of the nuclear testing they've done, because of all the nuclear exposure.
Yep.
So now you've got millions of North Koreans that are sick and dying because this guy is on an ego trip because he wants to be a world player, and he sees his way to be a world player is to have a nuclear weapon. He thinks, in his mind, he thinks that he is more important in the world than China, the United States, Japan, what have you. And whenever you have test missiles that are being lobbed into the Sea of Japan, at Japan, you know what? One of these things eventually, whether it has a warhead on it or not, is going to go across the Sea of Japan, and it's going to strike the Japanese mainland. And guess what? We have no choice at that point but to react.
It's on.
It's on then.
That's exactly right. Here's one of the articles that says a lot to me about what's going on in North Korea. And of all places, this came from Senator Lindsey Graham. He said he thinks that U.S. families need to move out of South Korea right now as the U.S. and North Korea get closer to war. That's exactly what he said. He expressed confidence in the Trump administration's ability to manage the conflict, but he says, and I have to agree with him, the U.S. is running out of time and that war has become much more likely. You make an excellent point. All it takes is one techno fuck-up, and you drop a missile, even if it isn't, if it has no warhead whatsoever, and you drop it for whatever reason on Hokkaido or Okinawa or actually the main island of Japan itself, you're going to have a massive war. I can think of no other option. But Lindsey Graham made a very salient point to American families to get the hell out of South Korea. Any thoughts about that, Sir Dan?
They should have been gone yesterday, man.
Yep.
This is how serious this has gotten. And let's be honest, one president after another until Donald Trump, Republican and Democrat, has always swept this problem with North Korea under the rug, or they've tried to buy them off. We just give them a little more money, they'll go away and they'll do this. Well, now the North Koreans, we're putting sanctions on North Korea, but they're continuing to do it. So you're sitting here, okay, we're putting all these sanctions on North Korea because you know Kim doesn't care about, as long as he's fat and happy, he's fine. He doesn't care about feeding his own people. He might care about them if he's running out of people and they're dying at too fast of a rate. He might start feeding them, but he doesn't care about his own people. He doesn't care about, I'm to the point where I'm not too sure that he cares about sacrificing his own people in the event of a nuclear war. So you have to stop and think about some of this. There seems to be not the mentality in North Korea seems to be the same, especially in the military leadership, and in Kim himself, seems to be that of Islamic terrorists. Islamic terrorists have no sense of self-preservation whatsoever.
True.
Their ultimate goal is what? To die and to kill as many people with them that they possibly can. And that seems to be the ultimate goal in North Korea, too. And, it goes a lot further than, just stopping their nuclear program. We're going to have to go in and have a regime change. There's no other way to do it. You're going to have to, not only do you have to deal with the nuclear weapons, you also have to force regime change in that region. And I think we should have probably, if we had been smart and dealt with them years ago, even George W. Bush was one of the worst in dealing with North Korea.
Bingo.
We should have started pulling our people out long ago, and I think, and that's actually something I think you're going to see pretty quick. I think you will see the State Department issue the order for all U.S. citizens to leave South Korea, and I would even say you will see you might even see a massive pullback of a lot of our civilian personnel off of the bases on Okinawa and in Japan, etc., all along the Asian Peninsula. I think you may see a big evacuation of a lot of our civilians, especially when it comes to spouses and children.
Well, exactly right. He said that it's past, he said literally, just as you did now, Dan, it's past time to move the families of American military personnel out of South Korea as North Korea pushes the U.S. closer to a military conflict. But a lot of people don't realize, they think, I think the U.S. has about, 1,000 troops in South Korea. Oh, no. There are 28,500 troops in South Korea. Their dependents need to go. Now, I said, Dan, that I have 2 articles to read to you. And this one, I think, tells a lot. But I'm really curious what your interpretation would be about this. I found this on Yahoo News. The headline is this: Russia is sending oil to North Korea and fuel prices are dropping, report states. The price of fuel in North Korea has plummeted over the past month thanks to Russian oil imports, according to reports that suggest Russia is ignoring international efforts to isolate the rogue North Korean regime. Journalists with the website Asia Press International, which is based in Osaka, Japan, published in English, Japanese, and Korea, reportedly said that fuel prices began to fall in November. The alleged decline in price comes despite U.S. pressure and United Nations Security Council resolutions aimed specifically at cutting off fuel to Kim Jong-un's regime. Curiouser and curiouser. Any particular thoughts on that, Sir Dan?
Okay, so here's the thing. Russia, especially Vladimir Putin, Russia wants to be more of a player on the world stage. They want to influence world events. They're kind of going back to a little bit of the glory days of the Soviet Union. They want to have a say in a lot of what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
There is no secret that Russia has vast oil reserves. They have vast natural gas reserves. Russia wants to be the Saudi Arabia of the world now. They want to control the oil markets. They understand that they cannot control things militarily, but they can control a lot of things with, guess what? Oil and natural gas.
And uranium.
And uranium. You have it, buddy.
The number one source of uranium on the entire planet is Kazakhstan. That is under Russian control. This is a play for resources. But the question I have for you is this nothing more than just a simple blow me to President Trump or the UN?
Oh, sure it is. Oh, sure it is. And here's why. You're going to see obviously Russia knows, and let's be honest here, if we're going to have any type of peaceful solution to this without having to go in militarily to deal with North Korea, and even dealing with coming to solutions in Syria and the rest of the Middle East, with Iraq and different things there, Afghanistan, Russia wants to, once again, they want to influence. They want to have a piece of the pie. They want to have a say in this. They want to have a stake in all of this. And they know that in order for us to accomplish this, that we're gonna have to have their help. Let's not beat around the bush about this. To come with any solution with North Korea, we're going to have China and Russia involved in this, and they're going to have to be on our side. Okay, the same thing dealing with the Middle East.
Russia, Putin specifically. Putin is a KGB dude. He was around at the end of the USSR. People call it Russia today. At one point, millennials have no damn idea that it was called the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, before everything became, the popular term is balkanized. That said, Putin would love to get the band back together, so to speak. He would love to see a return to Soviet domination of that area. One final thing. We got less than a minute to go before we hit the break. Europe is very much beholden to Russia, just as you said, because of petroleum.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and it's not so much in Europe. It's not so much oil. China is a big purchaser of Russian oil, and a lot of that will funnel back into North Korea. Russia is a major natural gas player in Europe. The primary source of heating in Europe, of course, number one still is heating oil in some areas, but natural gas, because Europe doesn't have any bachelors. It's all in Europe, so all of the heating gas and stuff has to come from Russia, and if Russia cuts that off, my God.
It will be bad. Okay, folks, we got to take a break. We are talking to Dan Butcher. He is the owner of High Plains Media. He is a media magnate. And I have only one statement before the break. Dan, we're going to talk about this when we get back. Dan, did you know that your DNA is an abomination?
Conservative media.
Oh, you bet it is.
Right.
I know what you're going to talk
to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk. The Sackheads Radio Show. Only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about?
The last question that you really cut a couple seconds.
Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You are, in fact, listening to the SHR Media Network. It's the bloviating Zeppelin, right here live and direct from the SHR Media studio, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied Fornicali. It's the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and we've been speaking for the past hour and a half with Dan Butcher. And we originally thought, we'll chat for, half hour. Then it went to an hour. Then Dan in chat said, well, this was certainly a small little teeny portion, wasn't it? And the answer is, okay, we're off like a prom dress, and we've got the last segment of the show. But what the hell? I got to tell you, Dan, I love talking to you anyway, so... for me, this is a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, I could be reading stories and whatnot. I'd rather be chatting with you. Anyway, it's Tuesday. It must be Belgium. Dan. I mentioned...
BZ,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if a lot of people know, but, when I come on the air with you, I literally don't have a clue what we're going to talk about.
I know.
BZ just throws whatever at me, and that's what we talk about. And that's what makes this so fun. I don't have a clue what we're going to come. BZ just sends me a text, says, hey, Dan, you want to come on tonight? Sure. And here we are. You're going to come on for 15 minutes? Yeah, I'll be on until midnight as usual, BZ. No problem. But quite literally, have no earthly idea what we're going to talk about. And this is, you think this is fun for you, man. I have an absolute blast when we do this. It's just because I never know what we're going to talk about and where it's going to go, man.
I have to agree, Dan. This is, I don't know, maybe it's too much inside baseball, but Dan is absolutely right. It's Tuesday, and I like talking to Dan on Tuesday, and he's done anywhere from an hour to a half hour to 15 minutes to sometimes, well, like tonight. What the hell? It's way past fuck it time, so we'll probably take it to the end. Probably take it to the end of the show, I've already taken the off-ramp for Fuck Me Over Town, so I may as well just screw it. Go to the end of the show, because it's so much damn fun. But Dan is right. I'll send him a text, and I'll say something like, hey, Dan, you up for some chat on Tuesday? And Dan will send back, I got to balance my checkbook or clean my fish tank, or, yes, I would like to be on your show, and then that's the end of it. I don't say, Dan, hey, how about let's talk about X, Y, and Z? I say usually in reply, hey, thanks, Dan, I'll see you. And that's exactly how it goes. But the other point of that is I find it fun. You find it fun. We get to bounce some crap back and forth off of each other. We do movie talk and whatnot. It's almost like a little mini Sackheads, because it's sort of stream of consciousness. Speaking of stream of consciousness, I asked you, Dan, before the break, were you aware that your DNA is an abomination?
Oh yes, my DNA is an abomination, and did you know that also if I eat, if myself as a white man, if I eat meat, did you know that makes me overly aggressive? It makes me too much of a male, egotistical asshole. Did you know that as well?
I mean, come on, Dan. Let's admit it. These are facts and evidence, right? I read this article, but with all the crazy bullshit that's come out these days. And again, that's another reason that this show is late at night, because we say B and S words. This is an article from the WashingtonExaminer.com. And the headline says, Campus Newspaper Editorial, your parenthesis brackets, your white DNA is an abomination. You can't write this stuff. Well, guess what? Here's why you know about it, because that's an opinion piece in a Texas State University student newspaper. And it tells all the little Caucasoid students over there that your DNA is an abomination. And here's a quote from the article. When I think of all the white people I have ever encountered, whether they've been professors, peers, lovers, friends, police officers, etc., there is perhaps only a dozen I would consider decent. Student author Rudy Martinez, that's a clue, writes in the University Star. Without much of any kind of a, I don't know, like a biological explanation, this dude Martinez says to his white readers, and he goes on, he writes, you were not born white, you became white. You don't give a damn. And then later on in his thing, he calls the police, just as you and I were talking at the first section of this show, he calls the police fascist foot soldiers and says that a white supremacist inhabits the White House. This is endemic. It's around the nation. This is, again, more of what concerns me about Gen Zers and millennials, and these are the folks to whom we will be handing literal control of this nation to people in these age ranges right now. This is the kind of stuff they're reading and writing in college. I don't know if you happen to do an article on this thing, but once I saw that, I thought, now he did get removed from the newspaper staff, but the Texas State University, all the imbeciles there said, it's just a kid. It's just a kid. What does he know? So he's innocent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what? He's just here's the thing. He's not a kid. He's in college. He's a young adult that's supposed to be responsible for his actions, and but yet we're just playing it off. Oh, he probably just didn't know what he was really saying. He didn't know what he was doing. You know, what a bunch of BS. The kid knew exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's just, this, once again, you would think this stuff is too good. This is the type of stuff, hey, you know what? You start reading it, you're going, hey, this is The Onion, this is pretty good. This is pretty funny. And then you realize, oh, no, this is student newspaper at
this guy's
State
serious.
University. Yeah. And it's absolutely nutty. And then, I want to allude to this because, I half jokingly said, that, eating meat makes me overly aggressive as a male. But this is a true article, and if you go to Campus Reform,
that's a great site.
You can find the article, and I'll share the link. But this Pennsylvania State University sociology professor argues that eating meat makes you too much of a man, basically. Now, this is this. They base this on interviews with vegetarians, with 23 vegetarians in the country of Argentina. Now, stop and think about Argentina. If you're finding a steak in Argentina right now, man, you're doing good, because they're all starving to death because there ain't shit on the grocery shelves in Argentina right now to begin with. But you're seeing way too much of this nonsense. You're seeing way too much of this nonsense either being taught, discussed by, college professors pushing this nonsense. Because I guarantee you, this one kid at Texas State University, somewhere he heard this bullshit in a class. I guarantee you,
there you
he
go.
heard this nonsense in a class and decided, hey, you know what? That'll make a great article. I'm going to publish that in the school paper. I'm going to, I'm probably going to win a Pulitzer Prize in journalism. I'm just in college. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then guess what? Reality sets in.
Funny thing is, he concludes his editorial with this. Whiteness will be over because we want it to be. And when it dies, there will be millions of cultural zombies aimlessly wandering across a vastly changed landscape. Ontologically speaking, white death will mean liberation for all. Until then, remember this. I hate you because you shouldn't exist. You are both the dominant apparatus on the planet and the void in which all other cultures, upon meeting you, die. Woo-hoo.
You know what, BZ? And let's go back to the source of all of this. And we discussed this at the beginning of the show when we were discussing the murder of another police officer here in Texas. This all goes back to all of the nonsense that came into being with the election of Barack Hussein Obama in 2008, and when he took office in 2009, all of this social justice, that is what you heard. The entire administration and every policy was built around, guess what? Social justice. And it was social justice, and how do you accomplish this? Well, you know what? They ended up playing different communities against each other. And it just wasn't trying to play whites off against blacks or Hispanics off against this and this. It got to where you started playing off different economic statuses against one another, different communities against each other, different parts of the country against each other. Those bitter clingers with their guns and their Bibles, we can't have them. Rural America is dangerous for the... How many times have you heard that rural Americans are dangerous to this country? Think about that. How many times have you heard the leftists, talk about how dangerous rural Americans are because they believe in God, they believe in family, they believe in themselves. They don't think they need the government to help them out. That makes them dangerous. And then you start seeing this stuff filtering in and being the college professors, these liberal college professors are emboldened to start teaching this because they're tenured. They can't get fired. Well, unless they're sexually harassing a student now, they're going to find their tenure doesn't mean jack crap. But beside the point, somewhere along the lines, this young man's mind of mush that wasn't properly melded at home for some reason, and then he goes off to college, and all of a sudden, you start to see that influence. And man, let me tell you something. We half jokingly, make fun of these folks that get their degrees in social justice, basket weaving, liberal arts, and stuff like that. But you know what? The way they think, BZ, is very, very. I'll even go there. I'll say it's very dangerous.
It is dangerous.
And the reason it's very dangerous is because that is what leads to the seeds of, guess what? Radical revolutionaries. That is what leads to the likes of Raul and Fidel Castro. That is what leads to the rise of such novel people as Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, Lenin, Stalin. I think you get where I'm going. Kim Jong-un. This is what leads to this type. This is what empowers these type of people, because these folks, all common sense is thrown out the window. This comes back to common sense. All common sense in reality is thrown out the window when you have somebody in college writing an editorial such as this, and then it getting published above all else.
It's pretty astounding. When I saw that, I knew, you know what, I've got to read that tonight because people need to know that this stuff exists. You made a reference, and folks, I'm gonna mention it here. If you want to see how insane crap is on the universities all across the fruited plain, Dan made reference to campusreform.org. You need to go there. That's where I get tons of my material. It's a never-ending treat of ridiculous millennial Gen Z bullshit, but it's there to see, campusreform.org, if you want to, get jacked up like 210 over 190 or something like this. We got about another... Listen, that's true. We got another about 7 minutes or so before the end of the show. And I'd like to ask this of you. I see White Mamba's in the chat room, so Paul, good to see you there. We still got Whiskey Dale there. We got Mamba. We got Dave. So Simone had to leave. I guess she had to balance her checkbook or probably go to sleep. But in any event, a case is going before the Supreme Court, and they heard oral arguments today. And Mamba, I'm going to be curious what you think of this. And it was the two gay individuals who entered an establishment, and this guy, I can't think of what it's called, but he's essentially an artist that does artistic cakes, not autistic cakes, but artistic cakes. And because of his religious beliefs, he did not want to do a custom cake for them. He said, essentially, in all of these cases over here, you can buy any cake that you want, but if I do an artistic piece for you, because I think it was a wedding, if I'm not mistaken, then this goes against my religion, and I cannot do it for you. But I have all these other cakes that are over here that if you feel like purchasing, you certainly may do so. I shan't stop you from that. Oral arguments went today. There was a very interesting oral argument that went in front of, I think it was Kennedy. And as you and I both know, Kennedy frequently is a swing vote. He made a very interesting comment. This is only off the top of my head. And it was something like this to the state, to the people that were bringing the case for the state. And he said, fundamental fairness. I didn't see, you ask about fairness, but I didn't really see much consideration or fairness being given that business owner by the state. When you speak about it, this concerns me. That kind of gives me an inkling as to where Kennedy might be on this. And a lot of people that were listening to the arguments said they have not seen the SCOTUS chambers lit up with such active arguments and questions back and forth and interactions between the attorneys presenting and the bench of jurists itself. Do you have any particular thoughts, Dan, as to where you think this might go?
Right now, from what we were getting from inside the chambers, it's really looking like the court really may go the side of the baker in this case. And there's a lot of different ways to look at this. There's a lot of different examples you can do. I've always argued that, this case and these type of cases go much further than a gay couple wanting to have a wedding cake baked. But guess what? Probably the baker a block away would bake the cake for them.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
They have so many different places that they could take their business to. Okay? Bottom line is, this comes into forcing the issue and forcing Christianity to recognize this and forcing Christians to go against their religious beliefs, to go against the teachings of the Bible, what have you. I throw this out there. There is a lawsuit right now where literally a Christian couple went into a bakery. They did not know that the guy that owned the bakery was homosexual and an atheist, and he refused to bake a cake for them. So do they have a case? Can they say they were discriminated against because, number one, they were heterosexual, and number two, because they were Christians?
It's only logical.
Yeah, it is. And I pose this question to you. What would happen, let's say, if a Christian walked into a Muslim bakery and requested some cupcakes be baked for Christmas or a Christian holiday, and the Muslim baker refused to bake that. Would that Christian customer have grounds to sue the Muslim for discriminating against his religion? It comes into the same thing. You're trying to force something upon somebody against their beliefs, and one of the fundamental rights that we have bestowed upon us is freedom of religion. Freedom of free speech, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. And bottom line is, this type of case is trying to infringe on all of those freedoms. Think about that. It's just not freedom of religion. It's also freedom of expression. This is to because what is the ultimate goal of, because stop and think about it. Normal homosexual couples, the last thing they want to do is be out. They want to live normal lives just like you and I. It's the radical militant homosexuals or the radical militant leftists that make a big deal out of this. They're the ones at the forefront that are saying we need to force these issues. It's not normal, well, depending on how you lose the term, but it's not everyday homosexuals that are doing this. They just want to be left alone. They just want to live their lives. Bottom line, they just want to live their lives. They get sick and tired of this stuff as much as we do. But here's the thing. It's the ultimate goal of radical progressive leftists is to do what? Completely do away with the Constitution of the United States, and they think that it needs to be done away with. It needs to be burned. And they want to rewrite the entire Constitution in their progressive image to remake the United States of America. End of discussion.
It is the end of discussion. The point of that was to make it a point. It wasn't to go in and it's when you're speaking, let's say, for example, about atheists. Number one, you have to have standing for that. And number two, you could easily say, there's a Ten Commandment plaque there. I'm not going to frequent that building, that park. I'm not going to go to that bakery. I'll go somewhere else. That's not the point. The point is to control the situation as much as possible. We've lost the ability to not be offended, whereas today it's accepted that victimhood is best, and that's not a positive thing for this nation. Folks, we've been listening to Dan Butcher for the entire 2 damn hours here in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And Dan, I say I got to thank you for your time. And before I go, I cannot forget my manners, because folks, they want to read you and hear you and know where it is that you can be found on social media. So, Dan, where is that? Where can you be found?
You know what? You can go to highplainspundit.com. That is our main website. That gets you to High Plains Pundit. That gets you to High Plains Talk Radio. Gets you to High Plains Pundit TV. That gets you to everything High Plains Pundit. You can get to all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, everything from there. Of course, you can also find me.
Yes.
There's a little website that you're probably on right now, SHRmedia.com. I post several articles a day to SHR. A lot of original material. Do a lot of just fatal, just plain old-fashioned blogging where we're doing some aggregation with some commentary and stuff like that. So we do a little bit of everything at SHR Media. So you can catch me at highplainspundit.com and shrmedia.com.
Beautiful. Dan Butcher, thank you ever so kindly for being here. Folks, we got to go. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Sackheads Radio, right here on SHRmedia.com. The Sackheads, Sean, Sackheads, Clint, and Sackheads BZ. Right here, folks. Tomorrow night, Sackheads Radio. Don't miss it. Thanks for everything. And all the fish.
Monsieur has unlocked!
meet again. Don't know where, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. This is a great song. I love this song. This is a song by Vera Lynn from World War II. And this also, by the way, is the exact cut from the movie Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me at Twitter at bzep and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to my very personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than 1 hour. Thank you for listening. Thank you for interacting in chat. Thank you for listening in podcast. God bless. Take care. Be safe. Go night-night.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.